So I basically wanted to abstract away a lot of that and build something that I needed for myself. But with a key aspect of it was always going to be self-custody, because Bitcoin doesn't work unless it's self-custodied. And that was really a core part of Zapright product, was to build something where I could connect any wallet, something that I'm already using. I didn't want to have to go KYC with another provider or provide something else. I wanted to plug in exactly the tools that I was already using and use those to accept the Bitcoin that I was earning. And again, having all the notifications and everything abstracted away so I didn't have to deal with that, and keeping full records for accounting and tax and stuff. I know there's speakers here that talk about this stuff today, and it is important, especially if you're running a business. You need to know how your business is performing, so having all these records on hand is obviously critical. Bitcoin payments as a necessity. I mean, we're starting to see a lot of things happening today that are just pointing everybody in the direction of Bitcoin. We had Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, a lot of these big banks in the US go under last year, which caused a lot of traditional Bitcoin companies and fintech companies to go through a lot of pain for a few days, wondering how they're going to pay employees and things like that. We're seeing it happen right now with Synapse and Evolve, literally today or yesterday got announced there's more banks going under, hundreds of millions of dollars frozen. These are things that businesses are dealing with on a more and more regular basis, especially as the regulation starts to build ever more kind of restrictive choke points and regulation around how people can get paid, not just in Bitcoin, but in the traditional fiat space as well. Things are getting very, very restrictive in what you can and can't do. And if you believe in Bitcoin, you kind of know this is an inevitability that at some point you're going to have to accept Bitcoin payments. So what we're trying to do is trying to get people set up with those payment rails before hyper-Bitcoinization happens and before they actually need those payment rails. Because the last thing you want to be doing is scrambling to take Bitcoin payments when your bank is being shut down. That's really not where you want to be, so you want to be ahead of the game. So why Bitcoin and fiat as well? Because we do live in this world today where we have most people running on a fiat standard, whether it's euros or dollars or whatever. You still have a lot of your expenses, your accounting and everything denominated in fiat, so you have to be able to accept both. But obviously the benefits of Bitcoin, most people in this room probably know these today, so I won't spend too much time on these, but ease of final settlement. Also, it's the most efficient way to acquire Bitcoin is a direct connection to your customers. If you understand Bitcoin and you've already understood the store of value aspect of it, you get that it is the most pristine collateral. Your next logical conclusion is, I need that on my balance sheet, I need that on my treasury. And the best way to do that is accept it directly from your customers. You don't want to be relying on a single exchange as your choke point to be buying your Bitcoin. You're going to pay fees, you're going to risk custody issues, all that type of stuff. You want to be able to spread out those opportunities and have multiple channels to be able to get that Bitcoin in. And again, it's just a redundancy in payment rail. As I said, we're seeing a lot of banks shutting down, a lot of people not being able to meet payments and things like that. Holds, chargebacks, rising costs. We see Stripe, different credit card companies now raising their prices. I think they're, in the US at least anyway, they're over 3% now. And that's just going to keep happening because of the costs associated with running those types of businesses. They just continue to rise in an inflationary environment. So those businesses are always going to have to keep raising their percentages on those payments. And then I mentioned the regulation and choke points. And one of the things that we see regularly is that businesses, you're always told to have a rainy day fund for, whatever it is you need to do, whether that's a personal life budget or even in businesses, to be able to, pay salaries for a few months if things don't work out the way they're supposed to. It's now almost a necessity to have that 2 or 3 months emergency runway in Bitcoin if you're a business, because you cannot rely on banks and fiat payment providers to be there in the morning. And that's just the reality of the situation that we live in now. We're seeing it on an almost weekly basis where a lot of these providers are just collapsing and leaving people high and dry. And so that's what we do, is we recognize these dual rails. People still need to accept fiat, but we want to build a unified payment experience where they can accept Bitcoin and fiat side by side and build in all the incentives that they can use to actually incentivize their customers to pay in Bitcoin, whether that's offering a discount on the Bitcoin side of it or putting a premium on the fiat side of it. You want to put your preference in front of your customers and say, I'll reward you if you reward me, giving me the preferred payment method that I want. And again, just doing all of this in one integrated checkout is really what we do, because most of the time what we see now is people will have, pay me in fiat, here's a button to go over to my Stripe hosted checkout form and pay credit card, here's a button to go over to like a Bitcoin payment provider. So we want to unify that in one experience, because it really is a two-sided transaction. You have to provide the best possible experience for the payer and the customer side of it, as well as the merchant. Even though we are heavily focused on the merchant side, the consumer customer side of it is hugely important as well. And so, we call ourselves a payment gateway. We're not a payment processor. We don't touch Bitcoin at all, or fiat. That's one of really the key things that I wanted to focus on when building ZapRight, was we never ever wanted to touch money. We didn't want to have to deal with regulatory bodies. We didn't want to have to get money transmitter licenses. We didn't have to register in every country we wanted to operate in. Plus, I'm just a huge advocate of self-custody anyway. As I said before, Bitcoin doesn't work unless you can self-custody it. And so really that's at the core of what we do. So we allow you to plug in any wallet. Now that may be a custodial wallet provider if that's your preferred choice, but we also offer you the non-custodial route as well. So for example, any Bitcoin wallet can be plugged into ZapRight by just putting an XPub. So that could be an XPub from a Trezor, a Ledger, Cold Card, whatever it might be, or a software wallet like Wasabi running on a laptop. We also allow you to plug in your Lightning node. So if you're running a Lightning node either on an Umbrel or a Start9, or maybe you're running on Voltage, chances are you're running LND or Core Lightning, one of the variations. So we allow you to put those credentials into ZapRight as well. And so when your customers are landing on your checkout and they're going to pay for something for, in this case, €21, we can basically ping your node in read-only mode and request an invoice and say, hey, give us a Lightning invoice for €21. We then present that to the customer, they pay it, and that money just gets shipped directly to your node. We don't touch it at all. So we're basically just the piping to get the money between your customer and you as directly as possible. And we basically just provide all of the hosted services to be able to do that. So you can kind of think of ZapRight as, if any of you are familiar with BTC Pay Server, on one side, it's self-hosted, absolutely amazing technology, really great software. The folks building that are doing some absolutely amazing things. If you haven't watched the documentary that just went up on YouTube, I think yesterday, My Trust in You is Broken, I think it's called, go watch that. It's a really great story of BTC Pay Server. But you got to be technical, you got to know how to run a server, you got to know how to set that up, you got to manage liquidity on your Lightning channels, you got to do all that stuff. On the other end of the scale, you might have OpenNode or BitPay, somebody that's going to host all that for you, but they're full KYC, full custodial, they charge percentages in and out on the money. ZapRight sits in that sweet spot where we abstract away running the server, so you don't have to do any of that, but we give you the full benefits of self-custody. So we host the checkout for you, we run the server, you don't have to do any of that, but you get all of the benefits of both sides. So again, any wallet, anyone, anywhere, and that's really kind of what I hit on there in the last slide, is that we really want to meet you where you are. We're not going to force you to onboard with a new wallet or KYC with a new provider. You come to us with whatever tool it is, whatever wallet you're already using, whether it's a mobile wallet, a software wallet on a computer, or a hardware wallet, or even a custodian somewhere like maybe Unchained or something like that, or you want to go with somebody like Strike for like the Lightning liquidity. We're really just building out integrations for all of these partners. So you can come to us like knowing that you're going to be able to plug in something that allows you to get up and running very, very quickly on the current setup that you have. You're not going to have to learn how to use a new service or create a new wallet. You can just plug your XPub straight in and good to go. And of course, we do the Bitcoin and fiat side by side because, as I mentioned, the fiat, unfortunately, it is still a massive part of people's businesses these days. There's only a small percentage of people that are willing to accept Bitcoin, and even a smaller percentage of their customers that are basically going to pay in Bitcoin. So we have to provide those dual rails and incentivize people to make those payments. And the tools that we do that through are invoicing, payment links, e-commerce connections like WooCommerce, Shopify, things like that. And then we're also building out subscriptions and point of sale as well. We recently released an API and webhook service, so now any developer can basically use ZapRight to build a custom payment flow from their website through to our checkouts and back to their website. And that's all available now through the API and webhook service. we're going to start adding in more accounting tools like QuickBooks and Sage, NetSuite, Xero, things like that. And we're building out sales reporting and dashboards, regularly adding things on that side of it as well. And we have full like CSV download for all your transaction history and everything, so you can plug that into any accounting software, give it to your accountant, and they'll be able to get you what you need from that. So all data is in there, in that, from timestamps like Bitcoin exchange rates at the time the payment was taken in, cost bases, all that type of stuff. And then Teams features, obviously, you just want to be able to invite people in, whether it's an accountant with like a read-only view to be able to download that CSV, or other members of your team. I mentioned before, we're not a payment processor. We basically work in conjunction with whatever you got. We're an enhancement that sits on top of your existing wallet, whatever that might be. We want to specialize in the payment experience. That's really what we're all about. We started doing different things about trying to figure out the accounting side of it, expense tracking, that type of stuff. But when you try to spread yourself out too much, you end up kind of diluting your ability to provide a really professional service, the best you can do. And so that's really why we decided to hone in and focus on the payment side of it, because we really feel that now is the time. We're seeing a lot of people come to us and onboard and want to onboard, knowing full well that they may never get a Bitcoin payment for 6 months or a year or more. They just want to have that rail in place because they see what's happening around them and they want to be set up and ready to go. And that's vastly different to what Bitcoin was even 2 or 3 years ago. When I moved to Austin after I left Canada to start this business, very much what we were all doing, and all the Bitcoin companies at the time, is we were trying to go around to bars and coffee shops and get them to accept Bitcoin. And they invariably would, because they were excited about the footfall they might get for like a new event or something. But what usually happens is that people disappear after the event's over, the payments don't happen, and they get disillusioned, and that's that. And it was a very hard sell. But what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of people just come to us and say, no, look, I get it. I understand the store of value. I want this on my balance sheet. I want this on my treasury. And payments is the best way to do that directly from my customers. And so they're getting those payment rails in place before they need them, which is really the critical part of it. And so, what does that look like if you're a business running on Zaprite? The left-hand side here, you might see, somebody selling a ticket for an event, right? Imagine you're running an event. You can set up a payment link and you can sell the tickets for your event. So that's like a one-to-many sale. You can just sell this ticket over and over again. In the middle, you might have an invoice, which is just a traditional billing that you might do for maybe sponsors, right? You're sending out invoices to your sponsors to get paid. You use the invoicing. And then the right-hand side of it is what a checkout would look like if you hooked up like a WooCommerce or something like that to your selling T-shirts or hats or things like that. And as you can see, this is all kind of branded with our fictitious Bitcoin events company, but you can fully brand this, your own custom colors, logo, and everything. So this basically will just look like your checkout if you're porting people over from your business and back. You get that full branded experience. And then, a lot of what you see today in Zaprite and a lot of what we've done happened over the last bear market. Zaprite started in 2021. I managed to raise a very small pre-seed round in Austin when I moved there at the end of 2021, and I kind of got lucky with the timing, I guess, because we went into a bear market very quickly after that. But one of the things that I did when the price was suppressed is I converted all of that money into Bitcoin, all of that VC money that I got. And so that has just allowed us to extend our runway constantly now as the price is increasing. We don't need to go out and raise money again. If we want to, we can just continue on as we are. And that's one of the beauties of having Bitcoin on your balance sheet, is it really strengthens the treasury and it strengthens your business, and it allows you to just have a stronger footing for any uncertain time that might happen, whether it is a fiat bank failure, or any kind of business event that you're going through. Again, I mentioned that what we try and do is we try and provide the best payment experience we can. We really want to focus and hone in on that one thing and do it really, really well. And myself and Parker and Will, we onboard our businesses directly. We get on calls and we do one-on-ones with them when we talk them through their setup. We show them how to connect a hardware wallet, how to connect a lightning node. We do a lot of this. It's time consuming, but it's very rewarding because the customers at the other end they know exactly what they want. And it is a very intimidating thing sometimes to move into this space, to try and do something new. But these businesses are obviously like, they're very receptive to this idea. So it is, it's one business at a time, but we are seeing great success in that a lot of these businesses are coming already fully onboarded with the store of value thesis. So, you don't need to try and sell Bitcoin to them, you just need to sell them a way to get Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And, that's really what we do, better than anybody else in the game. I won't spend too much time on the next kind of 12, 24 months because I think I touched on it earlier, but a lot of things like we're building out a Shopify plugin at the moment. We'll have QuickBooks and Xero and accounting tools and stuff like that as well. And obviously we're just continuing to work with like partners and other Bitcoin companies to work with their APIs and integrate a lot of the services that they have as well to really just expand on what we have. And it really is just about, helping more businesses to get on a Bitcoin standard. And I think we're, just the testament to that this room is fuller than it was last year is, indication that, more and more people are becoming aware of the need for Bitcoin payments. And I know we're going to have panels later on, hodling versus spending. I think you can probably guess the side I'm on, but I think it really is, a time that we need to start spending Bitcoin. We need to start using it. Saving in Bitcoin is great. It is using Bitcoin, but we really have to start using it fully by spending it and getting it out there into the economy. Because the longer we, give regulators time to put more kind of like choke points in place, the harder it's going to be. And so we need to just flood the world with sats and get it out there and get everybody using it so that, it just becomes ubiquitous and that's the way it is and people have to deal with it. And so, yeah, that's Zaprite. I think we'll probably do Q&A if we have time.
Yeah, we're going to do some Q&As there. Yeah, does anybody want to ask any questions? Hang on.
Sorry, it's a quick one. Are you open to other cryptocurrency or is it solely Bitcoin?
Solely Bitcoin, yeah. That's a personal decision, obviously, that I made, being a Bitcoiner through and through, is that I only wanted to deal with Bitcoin. And obviously everyone else who's joined the team, like it's, I'm not gonna bring on product people that try and like push that through. I think, everybody's free to do what they want to do, but I think Bitcoin is vastly different to every other cryptocurrency. Every other cryptocurrency is it's just a game, it's just a gamble, there's no real use cases, maybe something will happen, maybe it won't. Bitcoin is money, simple. It's money that doesn't get devalued. And there's nothing more important than that. And so if you're doing something else and you're working on something else or you're trying to integrate, as a business, it just strips us of our time and resources that we could spend on Bitcoin. We now have to manage different blockchains and different code. But if you're working on a altcoin or different cryptocurrency, my personal view is you're just running interference on humanity's progression. We need Bitcoin, the world needs Bitcoin, and working on a cryptocurrency is just, it's against my core beliefs. So yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying I'll never have cryptocurrencies in Zaprite. Okay, yeah, open to the conversation.
Okay, one more question there. How does the flow look like for people who are trying to pay in Bitcoin? And are people ever concerned about their transaction history, like other people knowing their transaction history on their wallets?
So what the flow looks like, yeah, I should have put some of those slides in, but I'm sitting outside at the booth. Come see me, and I'll give you a demo and a walkthrough open to anybody. Like I can show you how that works on that side. In terms of, are people worried about their transaction history? Are you talking specifically about merchants or payers as well, or both? Well, from the payer side, it's kind of private. We don't really know anything about the payer. If it's an on-chain transaction, sure, we might see where it came from, but payers can obfuscate that through coin joins and things like that, which is fine. In terms of merchants, one of the questions we do get asked is like, why would I give you my XPub? If I give you I'm always told not to give my XPub to anybody, and now you're asking me to give it. I mean, we know about your transactions anyway, so you may as well give us the XPub. There's no real issue with giving it to somebody like Zaprite. It just makes your life, a heck of a lot easier by giving us the XPub, where we can derive all those addresses for you. In terms of, are they worried about maybe Zaprite getting hacked or some, the US government asking us for a record of all our transactions? Nobody's really, concerned about that. They know it's a risk that's there, But the benefits of accepting Bitcoin is the far outweighs that as far as they're concerned, because all these businesses are legal businesses. We don't accept any illegal businesses where we have to sanction OFAC countries as a U.S. corporation. So every business that signs up with us is doing legitimate things, and they're perfectly entitled to accept Bitcoin. And so as long as they do their accounting and tax, then they're not worried about transactions being out in the open or anything. Yeah.
Hello, sorry, just want to say something. See, you were saying there that you want everybody to start using more Bitcoin and transacting Bitcoin. What would be to stop what would stop the Bitcoin network increasing fees, or how would it stop fees? If everybody started paying in Bitcoin, is the fees going to be the same, or will the fees get higher over time?
The fees will get higher for sure. Yeah, the fees will get higher, and most people will be priced out of the base chain. That's just a reality. It's going to happen. So we have to work on layer 2, layer 3s all the time. Lightning, Fedi mints, things like that. There's a lot of development happening. But yeah, absolutely. I see the base chain just being used for large settlement transactions, and even Lightning to a degree will become a second layer, settlement layer as well. And we'll have to have like layer 3s and stuff for consumers. Like that's kind of the direction that we're going. But yeah, and that's a good thing, because fees need to stay high to maintain the security of the base chain. So that's the incentives at play and working. And so yeah, that's great.
So who would set the fees then? Is it just Bitcoiners as a whole then?
The free market will set the fees. Every block has limited space, and if you want to get a transaction, your transaction takes up a certain amount of bytes, a certain amount of storage space in that block, and depending on how big your transaction is, like how many inputs and how many outputs, it gets larger depending on the inputs and outputs. One input, two outputs, like a sending and to a change address, is the smallest transaction. Well, one input, one output is the smallest. But as you start growing, so if you're a large institution and you have like many inputs and many outputs, maybe you're doing withdrawals for customers and stuff, those transaction fees are going to get quite high, and you're just going to have to bid for space in the next block. And so the free market will control those fees, and they'll just keep going up and up as Bitcoin usage grows, which will just keep securing the chain, which will obviously, self-fulfilling circle. It'll just keep going.
Okay, thank you.
But just to put a point on that, John, yeah, that's why Lightning and Liquid and all these other things are being developed now as well, to keep the fees down. Just explain that a little bit maybe, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been kind of assumed and known that fees will get very high, and we see that when there is spikes in activity and things, and especially everything going on with ordinals and everything now, you can see them just bidding out all the space in the blocks, and fees are just going through the roof. So that's always been expected, and so, Lightning's been around since 2015. It works, it's great, there's still a lot of development that needs to be done. Liquid is there, doesn't really get much use, but it's starting to get use now, particularly with swaps, between Liquid and Fedi Mint and Lightning and things like that. And these are all really great tools to keep fees down, yeah.
Okay, great. We have another question over here.
I actually have two questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The first one is, so we use Stripe in our business at the moment. It's not very popular, but anyway. I was just wondering, if you adopt ZapRight, there's obviously a facility just to take fiat payments as normal, is there?
Yeah, did you say Stripe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we allow you to connect your Stripe account. So we basically use Stripe Connect, which you basically just go through an authentication process within ZapRight. You log into your Stripe account, and then it just bounces you back to ZapRight, and it's now connected. And so basically we'll then just load a credit card form on our checkouts. When somebody pays that, it goes straight into your Stripe account.
Okay, so what I mean is, so if somebody went to pay, we have a tax practice, if somebody went to pay, would they see ZapRight and see the options to pay in cryptocurrency or in Bitcoin, for example, and a normal facility to pay in fiat?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see this screen here on the right. They see like Lightning, Bitcoin, and card.
Okay.
So that's what you'll be presenting your customer with. And again, you can incentivize those by putting discounts and premiums. But if they choose card in this instance, it just connects to your Stripe and loads up a credit card form.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second question I had was, you mentioned earlier, so obviously I understand from the side you want to receive in your Bitcoin, and you've got your wallet, etc. But you mentioned it's wallet to wallet, but can the customer pay from their exchange, so from Binance or whatever? It's not wallet specific. if that makes sense.
No, basically we're just showing QR codes, so anybody,
Okay.
and that's obviously like the beauty of Bitcoin is you can really pay from anywhere. We do see problems with exchanges, especially, you know, related to the last question. When fees are high, exchanges tend to batch transactions maybe every 24 hours. And so we do kind of see problems where it kind of messes with our timing and stuff like that. And sometimes, you know, yeah, there's other issues that can happen when people pay from exchanges. Sometimes an exchange will deduct a fee and send a below amount, so it gets recorded as an underpayment on our checkout, and it kind of might cause issues with customers and stuff. But it doesn't happen that often. But yeah, it's possible to
That was
pay
my
from
next
anywhere.
question, so that's
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, I've just got a question around capital allocation. So if you know that like Bitcoin has been one of the best performing assets in the world since 2008, how do you make the decision between choosing to invest the next incremental euro or dollar into your own infrastructure versus choosing to buy more Bitcoin? And do you make that on a returns basis, and how do you measure that impact?
Well, for Zaprite, we just pretty much hold all our treasury in Bitcoin, everything that comes in. Like we charge subscriptions, which is, I don't think I mentioned, but we can't charge a transaction fee on the volume that goes through our platform because we're non-custodial. So we're just a traditional SaaS platform, so we charge monthly annual subscriptions to access the platform. We have a card option on that, like a checkout like this, that allows people to pay. You know, 83% of people pay in Bitcoin, either on-chain or Lightning, and 17% in fiat. We convert that fiat, you know, almost immediately into Bitcoin. So our treasury just constantly sits in Bitcoin because, as I mentioned at the start, it just allows us to keep extending our runway. You know, it can be risky for some businesses who are just starting out to put everything into Bitcoin. But if you know that your runway is small enough and you know your timing, then you know you can. It's going to be a personal choice at the end of the day for every individual person and business. Yeah. All right, I think that's
Okay,
it.
yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot
Cheers.
there, John.